Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
And welcome to the GSMC Soccer Podcast. Of course, the GMC Podcast Network, where you can find other shows, baseball, football, sports, fantasy football, amongst other things. I'm here, of course, Mark Souza. I'm here with my co-host, Jeff Malinoff. Thanks for joining me, Jeff.
Good to be here.
I think you said for me to introduce you as the beautiful Jeff Malinoff.
I said no such thing. You have no proof whatsoever about that.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead with that, with the beautiful Jeff Malinoff. Thank you again for being here.
Shucks.
I'd like to talk today, I'm going to recap the English Premier League from this last week and take a look at some of the other notable teams in Europe as we look at Madrid, Barcelona, Juventus, Bayern Munich, see how those teams performed in their...
Say that 3 times fast.
Madrid, Barca, Juventus, Bayern Munich. We'll see how those teams performed. We're also going to figure out today Jeff's favorite English Premier League team. We're going to figure out the team that he will support from here on out.
Okay, I'll keep to my word and say I will support this team every time we're on this podcast.
Yeah.
No, wait, I can't do that because of that's I cannot have personal thoughts about it. I have to put my unbiased opinion.
Sure, but we'll figure out the team that's best suited for you whenever you're ready to make that jump to the English Premier League, okay?
Okay.
I have a series of questions, and I have this insanely intricate algorithm in my head that is going to...
In your head, or you found it online?
Oh, it's in my head. I got some good ideas, though.
I think you found it online.
I can get this. So...
All right, sure.
And then later on we'll talk about the women's Gold Cup right now with a focus on the U.S. women's national team as they participate in the Gold Cup that's currently happening. And, of course, the Women's World Cup is next summer, Jeff. I don't know if you know, but...
I hope America wins it.
They're always a favorite.
USA.
We'll talk about Paul Pogba from Manchester United and his comments about losing a little bit of focus with his club team, Manchester United, as, of course, it relates to the rift between him and manager Jose Mourinho. And we will definitely talk about Jose Mourinho today, a big focus. We talked about him last week and how his match against Newcastle was a must-win. We'll also talk about the upcoming international friendlies, or some of them, I guess, are not friendlies anymore as we talk about the UEFA.
Are they ever friendly?
Some of the time, not most of the time, but they call them friendlies because they're not in a competition. They're just playing games to get some experience. And we'll talk about that and other news and notes later on. So first and foremost, we will start in England, where we saw the top 2 teams in England right now playing against each other this last Saturday, and that is, of course, Liverpool as they hosted Manchester City. Last year, these teams, they had some big games against each other, not only in the English Premier League, but they had some big games in Champions League, which ultimately Liverpool got the upper hand before they made it all the way to the Champions League final. So it was a star-studded game coming in with both teams proving to be good at the start of this season. Once again, Manchester City, they did lose in the Champions League to Liverpool last year, but they had that incredible English Premier League win where they won the league. It wasn't close. They ran away with it. So they're looking to do the same. Both teams come in sitting on 19 points. And it was a tight game from the opening minutes. I think a lot of fans were probably disappointed in what happened, considering it was a 0-0 game. With two star-studded teams like this, we're talking about the two highest-scoring teams in the English Premier League coming in. It was maybe a letdown to see a 0-0 game, but I understood why. Both teams played very strong, especially in the midfield. It was a contentious game throughout. Not a lot of clear-cut chances. I'm not sure if one team can really say that they should have won. It was real tight, 50-50 possession, 7 shots to 6. I mean, there just wasn't a lot to separate these teams. But I think we will see a better game the next time that they play. I think we'll see a little bit more attacking. Jeff, what do you make of this game? There's two teams here that can score goals, some great offensive talent on the field. Of course, there's good defending on both sides, but is that a little disappointing to see a 0-0 game in the game that's billed as the game of the week?
I think any game that ends 0-0 like that is disappointing. Like, regardless of what team is playing, like, you're going to see, like, when you see the crowd react, it's like the huge reactions to goals, and that's great and all. When there's no goals, it's like you paid just to see guys running back and forth on a football field, no? It's kind of disappointing. Yeah. You want to see action.
Yeah, I mean, let
me ask you a question real quick.
Yes,
sorry
sure.
to interrupt, but
go ahead.
I understand like ties and stuff that happens a lot in soccer, but what if it was 0-0? Can you just make it into like a shootout so at least they see some goals, like some action?
I mean, I guess you could, but when there's a draw, both teams get a point and they move on and play another day. I mean, shootouts, I think if you start rewarding teams for wins in shootouts, like other than like a knockout game, like in a World Cup or something, then
it gets out of hand.
I think then you see teams playing for ties more.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So
like the smaller
shootouts,
clubs,
yeah. Okay, then just do a whole another 30-minute or 45-minute period.
Yeah, that I understand that, but then you're asking players who've already ran like 7 miles to run like another 3 to 4 miles, and then they got to play a game in like 3 or 4 days. So like that's really grueling. But
I'm just trying to think of it on a fan's perspective.
Yeah, I mean, there's been things discussed or mentioned to make the result more exciting, where like maybe there's more of a resolution at the end of the game,
because
right?
Probably the league was probably all excited about this matchup, thinking it was going to be this possible high scoring affair, or at least just one goal, and it ends 0-0. Everyone's disappointed. Like, I don't think it's not just the fans of both teams, but I think the fans of soccer in general, the front office men, and just the coaches and players in general.
Yeah, but with that being said, everybody plays everybody twice. So
we'll see them play again.
Yeah, they'll play again, exactly. So next time they'll play in the Etihad.
Watch it be 0-0 again.
And it's possible. It's absolutely possible, but I would bet large against that happening. So both teams, they get a draw, they get a point, they maintain their standing, except for Liverpool slightly drops in the standings based on goal differential because Chelsea defeated Southampton 3-0. Another game where Eden Hazard just shows up. I mean, he scores again. He's on fire right now. He is playing as well as anybody in England. And it was a relatively easy win for Chelsea as they go into the break with the lead, and then they add on 2 more. So they actually fit right now in a second place. And we move on to Arsenal. Arsenal, big win, 5-1. So if you like goals, Jeff, that game provided all the goals you needed. 5 for Arsenal, 1 for Fulham.
I'll take 6 goals, thank you.
Yeah. So if you like goals, Arsenal is firing on all cylinders right now as they just continue their strong start as they're now in 4th place. They seem to be progressing well with a new coach. They have new players, a new formation, a new attitude. They started off the season with a tough first couple games, but they've really turned it on as of late. So it's nice to see them kind of regain their form as a top club in England, trying to improve on their finish last year of 6th place, so they're trying to get back into the top 4 like they've been before, and now they currently sit at 4th. Their crosstown rival Tottenham, they also sit at 18 points. They did win this weekend as they beat newly promoted side Cardiff City. Not the greatest game, to be honest with you. I think a lot of people expected Tottenham to win by a bigger margin than 1-0 against a team in Cardiff that's not very good, hasn't won, and they give up a lot of goals. Tottenham's been dealing with some injuries, so they had some players rotating in. They had some injury concerns coming in, but regardless, Harry Kane was only able to get a few shots on goal. He did not score, which is surprising. However, Tottenham wins. They move to 5th. A big score in this weekend, a surprising score, is Bournemouth actually beating Watford 4-0. They get a goal in the 14th minute. And then Watford gets a red card and gives up a goal early. So they played about 60 minutes that game, a man down. They end up losing 4-0. So it was a big win for Bournemouth as they improve on their incredible start to the season that's seen them win 5 games, only lose 2 and draw 1. I don't think a lot of people expect them to be in the top 6 or even in the top 10 at the end of the season. But as of right now, they're in 6. So great for them. We see Wolves, another newly promoted side. A new promoted side and another win for Wolves.
I really like that about soccer, about leagues like that. Like teams that are in lower leagues, if they do really well, they get promoted to the big times. Like I feel
that
like
literally is the beauty of the game. Like that is like the best thing about soccer.
Like, I wish they did that more in American sports, such as like NFL, like some minor, like you make a minor league type of thing, and if they win it, they get promoted, and the worst team in the NFL gets dropped. Like the Browns.
Nobody tanks in soccer.
Yeah,
you can't tank.
That'd be perfectly NFL. So no team tanks. NBA, no one be tanking. Like they'll move into like the.
Imagine if the NBA or another sport. Well, we'll just use the NBA. Had teams. If you got in the bottom
summer league,
if you got in the bottom 3, you went to the G League or whatever it's called now, and your franchise lost like half of its worth.
Okay, maybe not lose its worth because that's a little messed up.
But I mean, you will because you're going to a different TV contract, a different.
Right. But overall,
who's going to go to the game?
But I would say last place team and champion switch, just one. So everyone goes for that top spot.
Yeah, it's nice. So in England, the 3 bottom teams out of 20 go down, and the 3 top teams from second division go up.
Do you think they could do that in the NFL also and make like a minor league NFL group and try to see what we can do there?
Probably not. But
they could probably do it in basketball, huh?
So the thing
baseball,
is,
they totally could.
So the thing is that they could do it in other sports, but they just won't do it. It's regardless though. Last year we saw for only the second time in history of England where all 3 new teams, all 3 promoted teams did not. They all stayed up. Not one got relegated.
Really?
Because a lot of times one or two of the promoted teams will go right back down because they're just not good enough, right? Like they don't have the money, they don't have the talent. They're good enough to be the best in the second division, but not good enough to survive in the first division. I don't think that we're going to see that this year because I think Cardiff City, I think they're destined to go back down. But we will see about that. We're going to talk about Manchester United actually in the 3rd segment. They did win, but it's how they won and their outlook going forward, especially with their manager, Jose Mourinho, their star player, Paul Pogba. It's an interesting dynamic going on, but I wanted to get back to Wolves. They beat Crystal Palace 1-0. Again, they win. They are right now in 7th place, a newly promoted team. They came in, and they have been lights out, 4 wins. They only have 1 loss and 3 draws. Other than that, I think that was the most notable scores of the weekend. Right now, we see Huddersfield Town, Newcastle United, and Cardiff City. Those are your bottom 3 teams in the English Premier League. They have gone, all 3 of those teams, Jeff, have gone 8 games without winning a game.
That's a lot of games.
Yeah, Huddersfield has 0 wins, 3 draws, 5 losses. They are at 3 points. Newcastle has 2 draws and 6 losses. They're at 2 points. Cardiff, 2 draws, 6 losses, 2 points. those three right there are my picks. Were my picks to get relegated, and it's looking that way as neither of the three teams have a win. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to figure out Jeff's favorite team. Then in the third segment, we're actually going to talk about Manchester United and Jose Mourinho and the drama there. We'll also talk about the Women's Gold Cup a little bit.
When are we going to do the story of me finding my team?
Next segment. Yeah,
we are?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
So,
you were saying so many different things, I didn't catch it.
And then we'll follow up with some news about Real Madrid, Barcelona, Juventus, and Bayern Munich, and we'll do that when we return.
See you there.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
And welcome back to the GSMC Soccer Podcast. In segment 1, we talked about the English Premier League and how the big matchups shaked out this last weekend. In this segment, we will be finding out our buddy Jeff Malinoff here. We're going to find out his favorite English Premier League team, the team that suits him the most. He might not realize it. He might not know that he's a fan of this team, but he will know today. Are you excited, Jeff?
Sure, why not?
Okay. Are you ready?
I'm always ready.
I'm going to ask you a series of questions.
I'm not ready. Hold on.
I'm going to ask you a series of questions. I need you to be completely honest with me. And more importantly, Jeff, be honest with yourself. Just be honest with yourself. Can you do that for me?
Okay. I think I can do that.
All right. Don't worry about the questions. They might not seem important. Just answer them as honestly as possible. So I'll start. Give me your favorite color.
Blue.
Blue. Do you have a preference of the shade?
More of a light, darkish. No, I don't.
Wait, that's a light, but dark too.
I prefer a darker blue.
Okay. Is there a color that you just can't stand? Like something that you would not wear?
No.
Okay. Sometimes people have like, oh, I hate this color, but you're not one of those guys. You're pretty open, but you just prefer blue.
I've worn all colors.
I mean, you prefer blue. None of your favorite sports teams are blue, though, huh?
The Sharks.
They're teal.
Okay, so yeah, now my favorite teams are blue.
Okay, so let's stay on that topic, though, because sometimes in England, some teams have different shades of blue. So like teal or like light blue, for example. What's your outlook there? You prefer darker blue?
Darker blue.
Okay. But you don't dislike lighter blue?
No, I'm wearing lighter blue right now. You can see I'm wearing lighter blue.
What about like North Carolina blue?
I like powder blue.
Okay. Okay. Do you care about how your fandom will be perceived by others? Do you care about somebody calling you a front runner? Do you care about somebody calling you a bandwagoner? Do you?
I get offended if someone calls me a bandwagoner because I'm not.
So
I'm supporting I've always supported my team.
Okay, so let me give you a little bit of insight.
Okay.
If we determine at the end of this that you're a fan of one of the big clubs, like one of the big powerhouses in England, will it bother you if people are like, oh, you just like them because X, Y, and Z?
I'm not gonna like brag how much I'm a big fan of them and like show off like, yeah, we did it. I'll just be like, yeah, I like them as a team.
So does fan authenticity, does it matter to you?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
100%.
So, but it doesn't matter if somebody's like, oh, you just like them because they're popular, right?
If someone says that to me, they don't know me. Because my closest friend, everyone in my high school and my college, everyone that actually knew who I was knows that I'm not a bandwagoner.
So you're comfortable with being called a bandwagoner because you know that
I'm not comfortable with being called a bandwagoner. I'm not one.
But I'm saying, like, okay, so we need to figure this out. So if somebody calls you a bandwagoner or a front runner, that will bother you.
I will tell them outright that that's not true.
But will it stop you from liking a team that, quote unquote, has bandwagon fans?
No.
Okay.
Because those people are bandwagoning off us.
Do you need to support a winning team?
No, I do not.
Does it? Okay, so
how you know the teams I like?
So
of course I don't.
recent success doesn't matter to you.
That doesn't make me a fan of those teams. No,
okay.
I've been a fan. It's a childhood thing. It's a family thing. I feel like a family bond over these teams, whether they do good or bad. We obviously prefer them doing good, and when they're bad,
picking a new team because this is something different, right? Like all those other teams you chose or grew up into, but now you're an adult, so like now you're accepting a new challenge of finding a new club. It doesn't matter to you if they have recent success.
Correct.
Okay.
Because when they win, it's a genuinely awesome feeling because you were there through the thick and thin.
Are you interested, or would it bother you to pick a team that has a decent chance of relegation?
What do you mean?
Like, some people may not want to choose a team that might not be in the first division next year, right? Like, they might want to...
Oh, so demotion.
Yes, yes.
That won't affect me, no.
Okay. Because, I mean, obviously it's, like, harder to watch their games or, like, follow them or whatever.
But you got to have the feeling like, oh, they'll be back.
Does it matter to you if the team participates in European competitions like the Champions League, Europa League, where they're...
I would prefer them to, but they don't have to. If the team you choose me that is the best is like they're bad, they're really bad, well then I will still have to support them.
Does the financial success of a team matter to you?
As in free agencies and transfers and all
that
that
like
stuff?
How much clout they have.
It'll be frustrating if they don't spend their money, but I mean, whoever you have me picked as, I'm just going to accept the fact that they're my team now.
Does it matter if a club has had American players on the team or in the past?
That means nothing to me.
Okay. Some people actually do in the United States. Like, I have a lot of friends who they support a club like Tottenham or Fulham, for example, because those are clubs that have had Americans like Clint Dempsey and other players kind of go through their ranks.
I understand how that makes sense. But like my favorite teams in like other sports, they can have nothing but like Russians and I'll be okay with it.
So we talked about recent success. We talked about like...
That's not racist. That's not what like you know what I meant, right?
I don't even know what you said.
I was saying like even if one of my favorite teams in America right now were just all Russians or all like from a different country, not from America, I wouldn't mind that at all.
Yeah, right. It's a club, right? It's about the club. So we talked about recent success is not really a big factor for you, and being like a front...
I mean, I would prefer it, but it doesn't have to be.
Being a fan of a front runner doesn't bother you at all either. But how important is team history?
Oh, pretty important.
So can you support a club, or would you be okay with a club that didn't have like any titles in the first division, or maybe like they've had success, but it's been like 50 years since they've won a title, but like now they're back in the league?
One of my favorite teams has that drought, so yes.
Who's that?
I can't say because of I can't say who my favorite team is because of biased opinions in future podcasts.
Yeah, but it's okay. It's fine.
Hey, I'll whisper it to you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm with you there. So would you?
Yeah.
Would you prefer?
You know exactly what I'm.
This unnamed team that has a terrible history and a terrible current situation that you like because you're
sounds like
just
I'm afraid
fan.
of the Browns, which is not the case. But yeah,
But no, this is good. This is good. I have a question from here.
Okay.
Would you prefer to stay away from a team like that if you're going to support somebody new in England?
To avoid a team like that?
Yeah, to give yourself to just take away that you don't.
If
need to
I
add
could, I
another team
would
like
in a
that.
heartbeat. But if I have to stick with the team, I'm going to stick with them till the end.
Do you need to support a team in a major city?
Wait, does it have to be a major city? You're saying?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't have to be a major city.
So you don't need to support a team in London or Liverpool or.
I mean, we could support a team in London, but it can be like the littlest country or city or country known to mankind.
Gotcha. So you like the color blue. You would prefer to root for a team that is a decent team, like a successful team. You prefer to have a team that is willing to spend some money and has some money.
Yeah.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Okay.
I think I found your team. Ooh, I don't know. You know what? I think I did.
All right, tell me.
I think your team is Chelsea.
Chelsea.
I think your team is Chelsea.
I used to have a crush on a girl named Chelsea.
Well, hey, the world works in mysterious ways, right? Like,
Yeah. Hey, all you Chelseas out there.
How do you feel about being a Chelsea fan now?
Well,
First off, this
they
is
have
your
their
color.
history, right?
This is your blue right here.
I'm looking them up on my own phone.
They're a London-based team. So if you ever travel to England, if you ever go to London,
I can go to a Chelsea game.
Yeah,
Do they have a history of championships?
they do.
They've been founded in 1905. I already love it as it is.
They've won recently. I think they won 3 years ago. They've won
Premier League, 5th of 20. What does that mean?
Fifth
5th team of 20?
I don't know what that means. They're in second place right now,
Okay.
but they were, I think, in fourth or
They're in the
fifth.
Premier League, okay.
They're not in Champions League, but they are in the UEFA League, which is like
Can they get it? Can they be eligible for the Champions League? Though?
yeah, and they've been there before. They've won it before, too.
They've won it before? Okay.
Yeah, they have a great history.
Okay, why is this my favorite team again?
This is your favorite team because A, they're a solid team that has money to spend, so they get players that are notable. They have good recent success, but they've also had some failures. So, but that's not. They've had their ups and downs in their team history too, where they've gone through periods where they haven't been so good, like the '90s. The '90s were not so kind to Chelsea, but the '80s were.
How is their fan base?
So they have a very old stadium. It's a nice stadium though. It's
They've won one Sorry, I found their champions. They've won one Champions League, 2
UEFA.
Yeah,
Mhm.
UEFA Cup winners, 1 UEFA Europa Cup
Mhm.
League, and a Super Cup.
Yeah.
Super Cup sounds cool. Isn't that against
The Super Cup is when you win the UEFA League and
you
the
face
Champions League
face each
winner.
other?
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Like even though it's like a 1A 1B competition, they face each
That's
other.
still a cool thing. I wish they did that in other leagues.
Yeah. So I think Chelsea's your team. Have you seen what their shirt looks like?
They're ranked as the 7th most valuable football club in the world with £1.54 billion or $2 billion.
And they're owned by
Their jerseys?
they're
They're just
owned
all blue. Ooh, yellow and blue. I like that combination.
they're owned by the guy who owns the New Jersey Nets, Roman Abramovich.
Oh, that Russian dude?
Yeah. He's trying to sell the team right now, but he's taken that team
Wow,
too.
he made the Nets horrible.
He did, but he's
Well, he
been,
also
but
signed
he's
Kenny
been
King.
super success. He's the one that bought the team, and then they started having success again because he had a bunch of money that he injected into the club. So they're the Blues. They wear pretty much blue every single game. Yeah, they have their yellow jersey this year, but they're a club. They're a big club. They're one of the big 6 in England. So
Okay, cool.
the royal blue. That it's a very notable shirt that you probably see more of now that you know that that's a Chelsea shirt. They got that cool crest.
Billy King is who I'm thinking of. He hired Billy King, who's probably the worst general manager in basketball history.
So, Jeff, we found your club, the Chelsea Football Club. They play at Stamford Bridge in London. It's an old stadium. They're trying to build a new one. they're currently owned by Roman Abramovich, who has unlimited amounts of money, and that's what really helped them kind of achieve greatness again. But yeah, that's your team.
Chelsea, okay.
The only other team that I would consider, that I was considering, maybe Tottenham, but...
Ooh, I like Tottenham Hotspurs. I like their commercial with that one guy. What's his name? You know what I'm talking about, right?
No.
The Tottenham Hotspurs commercial that was in America. I'll look it up. Hold on.
Anyways,
I'll find.
They're also an England or a London-based club. I didn't know how you felt about their kind of blue though.
An American coach in London, an NBC commercial.
Oh yeah. Jason Sudeikis.
Yes, so funny.
Yeah. Leicester City was also a club that I considered for you because they have that awesome uniform. They just won they were the team that had the 5,000 to 1 odds to win the English Premier League a few years back, and they did.
They had what?
They were 5,000 to 1 to win the league a couple years ago, and they did.
5,000 to 1, and they won it.
They were a promoted team, yeah.
That's awesome.
But I don't know, because I think that they might have enjoyed their most success that they'll ever have, and I don't want to put you as a fan of their team when their best days
Chelsea.
might be behind them.
I'll take Chelsea.
So, Jeff.
Chelsea's looking. Go Chelsea.
The new Chelsea fan. And Eden Hazard is on fire now. He is their best player. Eden Hazard, Belgian.
Eden Hazard is my senpai, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, now that we figured out Jeff's team, we're going to talk about Jose Mourinho and Manchester United.
Is any Chelsea conversation in the near future in the segments?
I talked about them a little bit in the first segment about how well they played this last weekend, but we will definitely talk about them in future segments.
All right.
I don't know about today.
I just got to get involved in my new team, apparently.
Yeah, Chelsea. All right, so when we come back again, Jose Mourinho, Manchester United, we'll talk about Paul Pogba. We'll also look at the U.S. international friendlies that are upcoming. We'll talk about Madrid, Barcelona, Juventus, and Bayern Munich right after this.
All right, we will see you then.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And welcome back to the GSMC Soccer Podcast. Of course, your host, Mark Souza. I'm here with Jeff Malinoff. We just figured out he's the newest Chelsea Football Club supporter, so congratulations, Jeff.
Sounds good to me.
Did you order your jersey during break?
No, because they're like $300.
Oh, no, they're cheaper than that. They're like $100.
I don't have $100 to spend on a Chelsea jersey.
Well, when you do, you go out and get yourself one.
Yeah.
They have them all over the place. That's another benefit of being a Chelsea fan. You can get their shirts like pretty much any soccer shop or sporting goods place. But
We'll see.
We just talked about that. We talked about the English Premier League in segment 1. I want to talk about Manchester United. Let's talk about Jose Mourinho. The weekend here when they played against Newcastle, that game was absolutely insane. It's just another day in the saga of Manchester United where you have these conversations that are being had. We heard last week that Mourinho was fired. No matter what he would do against Newcastle, no matter how the team would perform against Newcastle United at Old Trafford Stadium, it was leaked by the media. We've seen this now with the club of Manchester United. We've seen the club kind of get away from their ways since Sir Alex Ferguson retired a few years back. They've gone through a couple coaches. It's been hard for them to get back to the success that they were used to for about 20 years there with Sir Alex Ferguson. Interesting times in Manchester as Manchester City has taken over the city in terms of the best club in town over the last few years. Of course, their success in the English Premier League. Of course, their success in buying players, rivaling Manchester United after being the little brother for quite some time. We'll see how it kind of shakes out.
Okay, cool. It just sounds like Manchester City's still the powerhouse in the Premier League.
Yeah. As of right now, they're the team to beat. They're the defending champions. They have a good thing going. They have players playing very well. Very fluid type of team. So, with that being said, Manchester United entered last week with a lot of turmoil. The conversation was Mourinho is going to be out. We talked about this last week. I don't know if you remember, Jeff, but I said that they needed to win no matter what against Newcastle. Like, if they lost against Newcastle, he could be gone. And then I found out a couple days after our podcast, but before their game against Newcastle, that it sounded like he was already a dead man walking. He was already going to be out no matter what.
He was on the hot seat?
The
hottest of hot seats?
Yes, sir. So, they play that game the other day. I'm going to set the table for you. In a must-win game against a team that has not won, they give up a goal in the 7th minute of the game. They're down 1-0 at home. The crowd is stunned. In the 10th minute of that game, a second goal. They're down 2-0 to a team that doesn't score very many goals and certainly does not win, especially road games. At that point, I'm watching the game, and I'm like, oh, man, he might get fired at halftime. Like
Halftime?
They might just roll out.
Has that ever happened before?
Probably, but I can't recall it.
Could you imagine? But someone just gets fired at halftime. Like, the interim coach is like the assistant coach?
Yeah. I don't recall that happening, but I'm sure it has. The craziest things literally happen in soccer, especially when there's so many different cultures and it's a worldwide sport. Like, there's never like a news article that I'm surprised by nowadays. But Newcastle takes a 2-0 lead, 2-0 lead. Manchester United in the second half, Mourinho makes some changes, brings in some new players onto the field. They score a goal in the 70, 76th, and 90th minute to not only tie but win the game against Newcastle United, sending Old Trafford and their fans into euphoria.
Euphoria, big word.
Yeah, euphoria. The fans are going ballistic. We see Mourinho on the sideline showing some emotion. Alexis Sanchez, a guy who's been in the doghouse for a few weeks, actually the whole start of the season, he scores the winning goal. Incredible comeback, albeit against a team that they should beat. But regardless, 2-0 against anybody is tough to come back on in this sport when there's two professional teams playing. So they get the win. After the game, Jose Mourinho keeps up he's known for being very conversational in the media, sometimes a little bit stubborn and tough to deal with, but he's very open most of the time. He kind of put the onus on the front office. He let them know, hey, we have the best fans in the world, and every
player on the team they're on is going to say that.
But okay, so Mourinho says that the coach says we have the best fans in the world, and they deserve more than what the front office is giving them in terms of rumors and speculation. So he kind of throws it back in the face of his boss, like basically challenging them to fire him. It's another play by Mourinho.
It's like baiting them, like, come on, do it, I dare you.
But they just won, so it made perfect sense. Like the timing, it's like, what are they going to do? Are they going to fire him after their most exciting win of the season now? The fans seem to be backing the coach and not backing the ownership group. So it will be interesting to see what happens. There is an international break now, so Manchester United doesn't play for a while. They don't play until the 20th. You know who they play against? Their next game, Jeff? You might be interested.
Chelsea.
They play Chelsea.
Yeah.
At Stamford Bridge. That's your favorite team's stadium, by the way. Stamford Bridge.
That sounds like a bridge, though.
Mm-hmm. So yes, Manchester United. They will.
You can't name a stadium after a bridge. That's silly.
Yeah. So they'll try and capitalize on their last win. Star player for Manchester United, Paul Pogba. He came out recently and said that he has been struggling to focus following his country's World Cup win, as of course he led France to a World Cup win. He insisted that he can still lead the club at Manchester United, but he has had a falling out with Jose Mourinho, so it will be interesting to see how that relationship is patched up. Jeff, do you think that when you play in a World Cup, okay, so Pogba goes through a whole season with Manchester United. Are you following?
Yes, I'm following.
Okay. Pogba goes through a whole season with Manchester United, then immediately starts playing for France in the World Cup. They win the World Cup. He says that, since the World Cup, he's had a lack of focus. Do you think that it's tough, to play that much and not have a rest, and then be on they won the World Cup, so he's enjoying the highest of highs?
World Cup. Wait, yes, I'm following still.
Yeah, do you think that a World Cup year has played into him kind of having a tough start to the season?
Like a bad luck charm almost?
No, just like fatigue, like mental fatigue.
Oh, like a hangover.
Yeah. Like they won the World Cup.
Totally.
He said it's hard to concentrate, to start again, to hit hard because we just touched the stars. That's what he said.
Wow, that's so cheesy.
Well, yeah, I mean...
Sorry, but that's awesome and more cheesy at the same time.
It makes sense, though. So, he has revealed that he plans on getting back to form and helping Manchester United despite his differences with the coach.
Got a tough game against my team, Chelsea, though, coming up. Yeah.
Right? They do. Okay, that is a big game. That's actually probably the game of the week for that week.
CHELESAE.
And here's another fact for you.
What's up?
Jose Mourinho, the manager of Manchester United,
used to be this general manager of
Chelsea.
Called it
and had their most success under him. So
of course he did. That's why he went to the Yankees of the soccer.
Well, they're both kind of like the Yankees. They're like the Yankees Red Sox actually. But
is Chelsea the Red Sox or the Yankees?
Well, they're not like. Each team is not each other's biggest rival, but they're rivals because they're two of the 6 big teams.
All right, who'd you say Chelsea and Manchester? Manchester City's the Yankees. We already said that. Who is Chelsea when it comes to sports in America? Just to get people in America, just people that never watch soccer, just listen to our podcast, just compare them to somebody.
Man, that's that is a very good question.
We'll figure this out in next week's podcast.
I'll have an answer for you next segment. How about that?
Next segment, okay.
Yeah. So.
Are we taking a break?
No, not yet. We're close though. So the U.S. women, they actually are participating in the Gold Cup right now, which is the tournament held in North America. And they actually will be. They won their first game 6-0, and then they won 5-0. We talked about the World Cup coming next year for the women, as the U.S. tries to defend.
For America to win a World Cup.
Yeah, they'll look to.
America won last year, right? Last time.
They'll look to defend their title. But as we look at the Gold Cup here in the U.S., their group, it's USA, Panama, Mexico, Trinidad and Tobago, and the USA is just flat out cruising in this thing. Like I mentioned, they won 5-0 against Panama. They won 6-0 against Mexico, and now they play Trinidad and Tobago, who has 2 losses. So they should advance and reach the semifinals. In fact, I think they've already clinched. But it looks like they will play either Costa Rica or Jamaica in their next match. And then Canada will await them in the final. It should be a U.S. and Canada final. We've seen some big scores in this tournament. The CONCACAF Women's Gold Cup is just a little bit of a letdown from the men's. The men's, yes, Mexico and the United States dominate, but Costa Rica is a good team. There's just more competition in the men's. I mean, we have Cuba playing in the women's competition. They've given up 20 goals. They've played 2 games. Cuba.
Wait. Cuba's given up 20 goals in 2 games?
They've lost 8-0 and 12-0 in soccer.
That seems absurd. So they've scored 0 goals, and their opponents have scored 20 goals. Is there any competition for the women's in the World Cup? Who they play? Did they play?
Well, there is competition in the World Cup, but this tournament is a Gold Cup, so the U.S. is only playing teams in North America right now. So Canada is really good.
So their competition is based in Europe, though. Would you say those?
I would say the best teams in the women's game right now are Germany, U.S., Canada, probably Australia.
Oh, Canada.
England's pretty good, too. There's some other good teams. But in North America, not so much. But yeah, so the U.S. will play their last group stage game and then head into they actually play today at 4:30, but they will head into the semifinal, which will actually be this Sunday. And then the final, if they win, will be next Wednesday night. So something to look for. So we'll wrap up this segment. Again, we just discussed Manchester United, Jose Mourinho, Paul Pogba, and the Women's Gold Cup. In the last segment, we will talk about Real Madrid, Barcelona, Juventus, Bayern Munich, check in on those teams, and any news and notes that we find interesting right after this.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And welcome back to the GSMC Soccer Podcast. Again, Jeff Malinoff with me, Mark Souza. We found Jeff's team. He's now a Chelsea United supporter. We just talked about Manchester United and Jose Mourinho after we
Sounds
recapped.
like a political thing. I'm a United supporter of
Chelsea. Chelsea Football Club. Anyways, so we're looking at the Spanish Giants. We're looking at Real Madrid and Barcelona. Jeff, Real Madrid, they have reached a new low for the club. They have not scored a goal in about 500 minutes now,
that's actually quite a lot.
Which is actually insane when you think about it, because they're one of the biggest clubs in the world. They have all types of expensive players. They cannot score goals. This is the longest drought that they've had since 1985.
Since 1985.
1985.
When Marty McFly went back into the future. Or back to the past. Either one. You could pick.
They have not scored in 409 minutes.
That's a lot of minutes.
Yeah. So they haven't done this poorly in terms of scoring goals since 1985. So it's pretty crazy. As we look and we see Real Madrid, of course, their biggest move this summer was actually selling Ronaldo, a man who is no stranger to scoring goals.
Yeah, Ronaldo is probably the most iconic player in the world in soccer. Him and Messi, hands down.
Yeah, he scored hundreds of goals for the team. Hundreds, literally hundreds. Well, you can look that up.
I
It's
don't need
insane.
to. It's proof it's in the pudding.
It's insane that they lose him. They haven't been able to score. They lost the game in addition to, of course, having another game this week where they don't score. They actually lose to Alaves, which is not a particularly strong Spanish side. I mean, they're doing pretty well this year. We'll see how they do. They should finish in the top half of the table, but definitely setting lows by the day for Real Madrid. So their rival, of course, Barcelona. Barcelona also didn't fare so well this weekend as they drew against Valencia. Despite a Lionel Messi goal, they can only muster a draw against Valencia. And that was in the Estadio Mestalla, which is a very tough place to play. So Barcelona goes on the road against a tough team, and they get a draw. Not the worst result ever. Not as bad as Real Madrid, definitely. Hey Jeff, I think you were you were looking up the Juventus game from this last weekend. How did they do?
They won two. I can talk. They won 2-0.
Yeah, so they actually win again. As you know, Juventus is a team that their success is going to be determined by how well they do.
Ronaldo was the one of them that scored. He scored in the 37th minute.
Yeah, and their success is going to be determined on how they do in the Champions League. They've won the Italian league now 7 years in a row. Do you know that? Real Madrid, or excuse me, Juventus. Juventus 7 years in a row.
Ooh, mess up.
The Italian Serie A 7 years straight.
Italian stallion.
I see them continuing this run. They've been impressive. They already have a 6-point lead in the league, which is already a massive amount this early in the season. So they continue to move on. Ronaldo, despite his off-the-field
antics,
allegations, we should say.
Okay.
He has continued to maintain his focus. He gets on the score sheet, like you said. He had a nice left-footed shot into the back of net. How about we talk about another European giant, Bayern Munich? Let me know how they're doing.
They lost 3 games to nil. 3 scores to nil.
3 goals to nil, huh?
Yep.
They've had a tough start to the season. They're in 6th place right now. They have 4 wins, 2 losses, and a tie. I don't remember them ever being this low in the table, even after a couple of games. They're struggling. There is some talk that they may go ahead and fire their coach. A popular name, of course, Zinedine Zidane. We talked about him last week, how he's a popular name.
Love that name's awesome too, Zinedine.
Yeah, so legendary
Sounds like an agent.
Legendary player / coach Zinedine Zidane, who led Real Madrid to that insane amount of success in such a short period of time. He is now being linked with Bayern Munich and Manchester United because those are the 2 high-profile jobs that are currently out there. Where there's talk about the coaches being on the hot seat. Mourinho for sure. Bayern Munich, we'll see how it goes, but there is speculation. I don't know. I think Bayern Munich is a club that's patient. Manchester United, not so much. So I would say if I was a betting man, which I am, Bayern Munich is probably on the outside looking in.
Or?
A serious problem?
Yeah, your gambling addiction, sounds like.
Addiction?
You said you like to gamble.
Yeah, but you...
Yeah, I went there.
All of a sudden, you're an addict, you know.
No, yeah.
I think there's a hotline for that. But
www. Why would a hotline have a www. Never mind.
Yeah. So, Bayern Munich, team to watch for in the coming weeks to see if they can actually get back on track here in the coming weeks in the German league. Of course, there's good teams in that league. Dortmund, especially. RB Leipzig, Hoffenheim. Those are some teams that are good. That can provide some competition. Maybe we will see a different winner in the German league this year in the Bundesliga. Not sure. This could be the year. It could happen, but we're still really young into the season. So, the U.S. national team, as you know, they did not participate in this year's World Cup. They have 2 games this week coming up. So, the first of which is tomorrow, actually. They will be playing Colombia. They'll be playing at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa Bay against the Colombian side that did fairly well in the World Cup. And, they posed players like James Rodriguez, Falcao, Cuadrado, for example. Do you think this is a good test for a young United States team?
Definitely.
Playing against one of the better teams in South America?
It's definitely a test. It's not going to be easy, that's for sure.
So the U.S. has been going with a youthful approach in the last year or so, considering they didn't make the World Cup. They're trying to shake things up, get some new blood into the team. Do you think that's the right outlook for them?
Fresh blood is always good. Unpredictability when you're looking at the other team. I can see definitely an advantage going into it when you don't know the starting lineup for the other team.
Yeah, and beyond that, it's just important that the U.S. gets the young players involved, because here for the next 3 years, it's all about getting ready for the next World Cup. Obviously, they need to qualify this time, but these young guys, there's some good kids in this U.S. system that are playing overseas, that need experience with the national team. But the next couple of years are crucial for their development and for the progress of the country when it comes to international men's soccer. We already know how good the women are, well documented, how they are the most successful country in the world in the women's game. The men haven't caught up, but, this is a good start, I think. I think ultimately, and I've said this before, I think missing the World Cup might have been the best thing that could ever happen for the U.S. national team, because they seem to have gotten stuck. They progressed so well in the 90s and the early 2000s, and then over the course of the last decade or so, they didn't really make a ton of progress. But the talent is here in this country. The athletes are here. It's all about exposing these players to the best competition in the world, getting them on the best clubs in the world, and seeing how that can, affect their futures.
Yeah, definitely. I think sometimes there's goodness to happen in failure. Like, you learn from your mistakes and stuff like that, and I think that's what the national team needed to do, is really accept their mistakes and start basically from scratch.
Yeah, and this will be a conversation that I think me and you will talk about in future episodes here, but there's been definite times, especially in this sport, where countries kind of get embarrassed by either like a bad result in like a big competition, or they don't qualify for a tournament, and it actually ends up making them stronger down the road. Like, they take it as a challenge, and they're actually more successful in the long run for it. So I see that exact same thing happening here. A lot of it is just due to resources. We're a huge country. We have great athletes. We have kids that are exposed to playing different sports and things like that, which can be a detriment when it comes to finding the best soccer players. But at the same time, kids here are able to get noticed maybe in different avenues where they're not allotted that same fortune in other places. So we will see how it goes. U.S. also plays Peru. So they will be playing Peru on the 16th for this international break. Again, there's no club soccer in Europe this week as we hit the international break. We'll be back next Wednesday, though. Jeff, you have any last thoughts?
Go Chelsea.
Chelsea Football Club over here. Newest supporter Jeff says go Chelsea. So we will see you next time.
Have fun, everybody. Have a good day.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.